Good morning, console room. Welcome to Sunday, and welcome Ben Ellis for our next panel.
Thank you very much. Has everyone having a great weekend so far? Good. All right. So this is one of my favorite parts of being part of this convention is I get to interview many excellent actors, and this gentleman is no exception. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Ian McNeice.
Thank you very much. That's great. Hello. Oh, it works. Now, how many of you were here on Friday? Okay. So you're going to hear the same things told over and over again. So if you want to leave now, that's fine, but you have to get an autograph. You have to get an autograph from me later if you do. All right. Anyway, nice to see you all. Welcome. My God, these lights are bright, aren't they? We can hardly see anything out there.
Hello. Hello. Oh, there it goes. We're gonna have to squint.
Yep. We'll squint.
Just a moment here. Okay. So how have you enjoyed Minnesota so far?
Oh, I've had a great time, I have to say. I mean, as I said before, when I came to Minnesota, everybody was saying, oh my God, it's so cold here. It's so cold. And then I turn up, it's what, 50 degrees? Oh, it's incredible. I just can't quite believe last night was so warm too. So it's amazing. I've been very lucky to be this warm. So great. Love Minnesota.
This is definitely our summerest winter ever.
Yeah,
so.
I know. It's crazy time.
All right.
It's even colder. I've been staying in Hutchinson, Kansas with my American partner and her dad who's 92. So I've been there until from Christmas. I came from there. And so it's been very cold there. We had a lot of snow, so it's been actually warmer here. It's crazy.
All right. My first question for you is, how did you get started in acting?
How did I what?
Get started in acting.
Oh, started in acting. So, well, as a kid, right, my father worked for an American drug firm called Eli Lilly. And we had to come to America. He had to go to Harvard to learn how to run the business back in England. I was about 8, and we came here, and I went to Indianapolis, Indiana, where I was there for a year. And when I came back from America after that year, I had an American accent. As a kid, you pick it up so well. And I went to this new school, and they had a little drama department there, and I'd never done any plays like that before. And they said, well, would you like to do a bit of drama? I said, I'd love to be in a play. It was a play about Romans, and I had to play a Roman soldier with a spear. There was a whole line of little Roman soldiers of us on stage, and they said, right, okay, what's going to happen is that you're going to fall asleep with your spear, and you're going to wake up, and all the other soldiers have gone, and you're just left there, and you just have to say these words. In my big American accent, I had to turn around and said, gee, Buster, which way did they go? And he got a big laugh. And that one moment, 8 years old, big auditorium, all these parents laughing at me, I went, you know what? This is good. This is what I want to do. I like this. So that was my first encounter. Yeah.
And you were hooked ever since then?
That's what I've been doing ever since because, my father was so disappointed with my exam results. But you know what? I had this little niche for acting, and that was it. That's where I started.
What is your favorite role that sorry, stupid iPhone. What is your favorite role you've played on stage?
On stage?
Yes.
Okay, well, funny enough, I did a lot of acting in my early days, theater-wise. I did a lot of theater in my 20s and early 30s. 4 years at the Royal Shakespeare Company. I went to Broadway with a wonderful show called Nicholas Nickleby, which was 9 hours. Extraordinary. You could go and watch half of it one day, half of it the next. So you could see the whole thing over the weekend on a Saturday and a Sunday. Great show. But I had kids in my early 30s, and I thought, you know what? I can't do any theater anymore. It's just pays so badly. I have to start doing TV and film. And for the next 17 years, that's all I did, was television and film. And then then one day I got this call from my agent to say, look, the National Theatre. I said, I don't do, hang on. It's an offer. It's a play about Harold Macmillan, one of our prime ministers, and Jeremy Irons is going to play Harold Macmillan, and they want you to play Winston Churchill. And I went, hey, okay, I like the sound of that very much. And so I did that, and I, stood on that stage after 17 years, thinking, what the hell am I doing? Because I was so terrified being on that stage again after that length of time. But then it got better, and I started to enjoy. I heard the laughter, and I said, yes, this is where I want to be. And that was Winston Churchill. And actually, that was the part that I really enjoyed. And then, during the show, these casting people from Doctor Who came, and the director, and they were looking for a Winston Churchill to be in their show, and they found him, and that's how I got the role.
Perfect. So when you were, and what was the name of the play you did with Jeremy Irons where you played Winston Churchill?
It was Never So Good.
What kind of research did you do to get into the character of Winston Churchill?
Well, I did a lot, because at the time, right, I mean, it was like, there was so much to look at, because there'd been so many, I could hear all his speeches, Winston's speeches. I could start to talk like him, and I went to his home, which was outside of London, in Kent, a beautiful house, and went into his little studio, which he had in the gardens, where he did all his paintings. I saw those, which was great, and I went to Blenheim Palace, and where he was born. And just nearby Blenheim Palace was this little graveyard, and he's buried there. He's buried with his wife, Clemmy, next door. And the night that I went there, it was quite dark, and there was a little mist. It was very spooky, mist coming over the graveyard, and suddenly I could hear this whisper that said, "Don't muck it up, boy." Wow. And he sort of talked to me. It was like there it was, saying, you're doing a play about me, just, be careful.
Out of the speeches that Churchill gave, do you have a favorite speech of his?
Oh, well, I think, blood, sweat, and tears, we'll fight them on the beaches. We'll fight them in the air. We will never lose, and we will never give up. Yeah, it was that sort of thing, yeah.
Neat.
Oh, come on. Come on now, come on.
We're Minnesotans. We clap for anything.
I know, it's great. Keep going, that's great, yeah. I love that.
So you do stage, you do television, and you have your first role in Top Secret, correct?
Yes, that was my first film role was with wonderful, these three guys, right, all directed this film called Top Secret. They directed this sort of kind of, movie called Airplane. Oh my God, wasn't it great?
Yeah, one of my favorites.
Absolutely. Don't Call Me Shirley. Yeah. I remember that. Just wonderful movie. So that was really exciting to be working with them. And the three of them, right? It's amazing because, they all. When you work with them, what would happen is you'd do a take and they'd all three huddle together and work out what they wanted to happen next. And one of them would come up and speak to you. Having had that little huddle, they all came and speak. But the best thing about it was that there was this, I played a character called the novelty seller. It was about two spies, right? And I had one scene where I got killed, which we did the night before. And when I was doing that scene, I said, look, I have to play this scene with this other person. Can you tell me who the other person is? And they said, oh, that's Omar. And I said, Omar? I said, yes, that's Omar Sharif. And I went, yeah, right, absolutely, Omar Sharif. Because I'd seen him, in Lawrence of Arabia. He was a big star, right? So I turn up on the day, it's Omar Sharif. I'm working with Omar Sharif, and it was fantastic. So when I did the audition, I said to the directors, the Zucker brothers, I said, look, I love this character, but wouldn't it be funny if he's a spy, but so he's trying to pass on this information, but he's also a novelty seller, So I said, the thing is this, is that when people pass by and I have to be the novelty seller, why don't I get off on the gags and just enjoy what I'm doing? They said, that's a great idea. We like that idea. So because what would happen was was that so someone would pass by, and I couldn't be the spy. I'd have to say to Omar, look, take this cigar, and it lit and blew up in his face. And it's so good. It's so funny, yes. Yeah. So I would get off on the jokes, and they liked that idea. So that's Omar Sharif. What amazing man.
Now, did you know that it was the Zucker brothers and Jim Abrams, correct?
Sorry?
Who directed it? Excuse me. The directors of Top Secret were the Zucker brothers and Jim Abrams?
Jim Abrams was the other guy, yeah.
They're from Minnesota.
Are they?
Yes.
Really?
They got their start at an improv club here called the Brave New Workshop.
I never
Dudley
knew
Riggs,
that.
Brave
I
New
never
Workshop.
knew that. Oh, wow.
So.
No, that's
And
great.
they've made many great films. So.
Oh, they have? No.
I write one I really enjoy, and it's kind of in the style of the Marx Brothers, is Brain Donors. Brain Donors.
Oh, right.
And John Turturro literally plays Groucho Marx.
Wow. Never knew that.
Kentucky Fried Movie, which is a bunch of sketches.
Kentucky Fried Movie. I love that title. That's great.
And it has George Lazenby, too. So there you go. Sorry about this. Another movie my mother loved of yours was Ace Ventura, When Nature Calls.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, the boy, the man. Well, you know what? The thing is this, is that Jim Carrey, I mean, what can you do? I mean, he's on it 24 hours a day. You know, the thing is, with the big movies, right, the lighting setups take 2 hours longer. And so what do you do during those 2 hours, waiting to work? You go back to your caravan or your Winnebago, if you're lucky, and you have a cup of coffee and read a magazine. Jim Carrey stays on the set and entertains the troops. He's like extraordinary. I mean, he'll do funny voices, funny walks. He'll do stand-up comedy. I mean, he'll play musical instruments. But he does it 24 hours a day. He never relaxes. That's it. And of course, the script, you can forget the script, because what you get is nothing like what's written, because every day he improvises. So I'm there thinking, what the hell do I do? When is he going to finish? Because I don't want to tread on what he does. So I would just wait and think, has he finished? Has he finished? Can I come in now? And so he called me afterward. He said, hey, Reaction Jackson McNeice, that's great. I love what you're doing, that's great. So that was it. I mean, extraordinary. Amazing. So, and of course, trying to keep a straight face with what he's doing, it's very hard. Very hard, yeah. No. And the other thing that happened, while we were making the movie, and this is extraordinary, right? He was the first man to get $20 million for a movie. It was Cable Guy, the next movie he did. And I said to him one day, I said, Jim, what must it be like getting paid $20 million for a movie? And he said, you know what? It's like getting a golden birthday cake every day of your life. And that was it. That was it. What a golden birthday. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So here's the big question, because we're at a Doctor Who convention. Your first role in Doctor Who was not on the TV show, correct?
Was what?
Your first role on Doctor Who wasn't on. You did Big Finish before you did the TV show.
That's right. I did the Big Finish productions, yeah.
What was that? You played Zeus, correct?
I played Zeus, yes, that's true.
What was that like to do that first one?
I can't remember whether, or I know that one of them that I did, and it may have been this one, but I know that we did these Big Finish productions, right, in London, in a little studio in London, and it was great because they had the guy there who was an excellent chef, right? And he did this wonderful meal at lunchtime, and I always remember thinking, you got to do Big Finish productions because the lunch is unbelievable.
That's what I hear from
Which
most people.
was great.
Sorry.
Absolutely true.
Nice.
But that was in London. But this time, they said, they've changed the production. You're going to have to go outside of London, about 2 hours outside of London, on the train into the middle of nowhere, and this little tiny studio there. And I'm thinking, why on earth are we coming here? Until through the door, still in his pajamas, came Tom Baker. And I suddenly realized that's why we're in the middle of it. He lived 5 minutes down the road, right? And I promise you, still in his pajamas. It was crazy. It was crazy. There he was, brilliant, as always. But that was my introduction to Tom Baker, which was great. And I'd watched him as a kid. He was my first Doctor Who, so it was a great day when he turned up, I have to say.
That sounds fantastic, and that's what I've heard about Big Finish is like the spread is a lot of the reason the actors, to do the roles, obviously, but the food is amazing.
And luckily enough, later I then went on to do some box sets of Winston Churchill for Big Finish. Lovely, beautiful little four series box sets, which are great. You should try and get them if you can.
They are available in the dealer's room.
The Churchill stories, yeah, great.
So you do Big Finish, and then after that, were you cast as Winston Churchill in Doctor Who?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
How did that happen? You kind of mentioned earlier with the play with Jeremy Irons. Was there anything else?
No, that was it. They cast me from watching the show I did in the theater.
So like Andy, was it Andy Pryor? Or?
That was right, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you remember about your first day on set?
Well, I have to say it was amazing because it was only the second time that Matt Smith had actually done his Doctor. So he was very new to doing it. And so he was, just watching was amazing because he was so inventive and so creative and just a great guy to be with, very funny and very warm. And he just tried so many ways of doing things. And Karen Gillan, well, her legs go all the way up, don't they, quite frankly. She's a gorgeous lady. And so the two of them were great. And I have to say, there was one day when I came in and they said, oh my God, last night, Karen was on the phone and she called me. She said, you got to watch TV. It's McNeice. It's on Ace Ventura When Nature Calls. So the two of them had watched the show the night before and came and said, oh, we're working with a movie star here, which was lovely. Yeah.
What was it like acting? Excuse me. What was it like acting alongside Daleks?
Oh, well, that was the other thing, isn't it? Is Daleks. It's like I couldn't believe it that actually. I mean, at that point, the point that I did Churchill, I mean, Doctor Who had become very big because of all the doctors involved and because of the. It had suddenly had this renaissance. I mean, since they brought it back, and so it was great to be asked to be in it, which was good. But not only that, but then to find in the script when I got it that there were going to be Daleks in it was like, you know, cream on top. It was really great, I have to say. So that was a real plus for me to do the show with Daleks, I have to say.
Neat. Any funny stories from on set?
Well, you know what? These Daleks, you know, it's very basic stuff. I mean, you put these guys inside of it, and I always heard this story in the early days, right, with the Daleks, where they put their heads on, and they had little buzzers that they could press if they needed anything. So if they wanted to do a pee or something like that, they'd have to press a buzzer, and then someone would let them out. And of course, there was the times when they'd be left totally on their own, and no one would get to them, and you see a little puddle suddenly start to come out of the bottom where they'd run out of time with the Daleks. Whether that's true or not, I'm not sure, but I love the story anyway.
Great. And then you came back in Matt's last story, was it?
I did, yes. I came back as some sort of emperor or something like that. I have to say, in that one, I was talking to a man with a green face, and I'm thinking to myself, I can come back as Winston Churchill at any time. I'm talking to a man with a green face now. Come on. You know, so that
didn't you play him one more time?
Sorry?
Didn't you play him one more time on
Yes,
Doctor?
I did.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay. My next question is, would you ever be open to playing Winston Churchill or another role on Doctor Who, if you were asked?
Oh my good! I mean, in a heartbeat, you know, I'd go back and do it. Although I have to say, I mean, having done that, I then did another play playing Winston Churchill. I did the theatrical version of The King's Speech, which we did in the West End. So I played this boy quite a few times now, I have to say.
Do you ever think, well, there'll be a time where someone will come and say, hey, do you want to play Winston Churchill again? And will you say no?
No, I don't think I'd ever say no. I'd always have to say yes. I think yes, part of my DNA now.
And I was curious, had you worked with Bill Patterson before Doctor Who?
Bill Patterson, no. That was the first time I'd worked with him, but I'd known him for years. Yeah,
Okay.
We'd met on the circuit for various things, but he was great.
Nice. Sorry.
I worked with him later, though. He came to join us on the set of Doc Martin, this other show that... Anybody watch that show at all? Or no? Yes, there we go. The large people. You know Facebook. Facebook. Now, I can't believe this, but this woman called Gloria got in touch with him and said, you know what? I'm going to run a fan club for you on Facebook. Would you mind? I said, sure. So on Facebook, you can come across this site called the Burt Large Lovers Group, which is hysterical, right? And it's mainly women. And I've got into trouble before because I've called them, women over 60. And they said, no, there's some younger people here as well. So I now have to say women of a certain age. I have to be so careful with what I say, but there's can I believe this, over 6,000 or 7,000 people on this site, all going, Burt Large, Burt Large, Burt Large. It's amazing, I have to say. So do look at it, when you go, and come and join us on the Burt Large Lovers Group. Very funny.
How were you approached to play the role of Burt Large?
Do you know what? I did this interview for this role to play this plumber, Burt Large plumber, and I had this sort of rule, right, that if I went up for something and I thought it was a one-off, right, I thought, you know what, I'm just going to read, I'm going to read the sides, I'm going to read the part, I'll read for the interview, just that. But if it's something that I really wanted, like a sort of film or a movie or a series or something like that, I'd learn it. So, I'd really try and get it. So I thought, Doc Martin, it's a one-off, right? It's a one-off. So, you know what, I'm not going to bother. So I turned up on the day and I just read the scene and all the rest of it. And they said, oh, would you mind reading from another episode? I said, what? It's a series? And I hadn't bothered to. I thought, oh, goodness me, I'll muck this up, So I read from the other series, and that night they rang and said, would you want to do it? And I thought, oh, goodness me, I was so grateful. And this one little episode turned out to be over 20 years long. It ran for 10 series, and it was the best thing ever in this beautiful little Cornish village. It's very like your TV show, which I loved as well, called Northern Exposure, about a grumpy doctor who goes to the, middle of nowhere, and all these quirky characters, and it's very similar to that, Doc Martin, and I think you can see it on PBS or Acorn TV, but it's really worth a look. It's very, very funny. Wonderful guy called Martin Clunes plays the grumpy doctor in it, and he was in that wonderful series called Men Behaving Badly, and he does all these travel shows I'm sure you've seen.
He was also in Doctor Who, too.
He was. You're absolutely right.
Was
I've
in an
seen him.
episode
Yeah,
with Peter.
that's right. Yeah.
Played in Snake Dance, where
Yeah, you're
he's
right.
dressed very differently from Martin Clunes. So.
Yeah, that's it.
Yes. What's a favorite role that you've played on film?
Oh, you know what? The thing is, I've been so fortunate. I mean, it's been really lucky to, one day to play a plumber, then the next day, play a prime minister. So I've had a range of roles, but also I've had a chance to work with some of your greats, really. I mean, Anthony Hopkins in 84 Charing Cross Road, Johnny Depp in From Hell, Tom Cruise in Valkyrie, Annette Bening and Colin Firth in Valmont, I mean, Michael Keaton in White Noise. I mean, hugely fortunate to have worked with all these wonderful people, and I work with a very fine director called Milos Forman in Valmont, and to tell you this funny story. So Milos Forman was the guy who did One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, right, and Ragtime and Amadeus, really first-rate director. So, but he's a little bit of a tricky individual, and was quite sort of rough with quite a few of us. And then there's one scene, right, that all I had to do, right, Colin Firth is lying on the bed, and I'm his servant, Azalon. All I have to do is come into the room, open the curtains, and I turn around, and he says to me, Colin says to me, where is she? And my line is, she's gone. That's all I have to say, she's gone. 27 takes later, I am still saying, she's gone. And I'm pulling my hair out because I don't know what he wants. And he goes, oh, it's so simple what I asked you to do, Jan. You say she's gone. So I always go, okay, she's gone. It's not too big. It's too Hollywood. You say she's gone. I had no idea what he wanted, right? 27 takes later, and I'm standing face to face, and I'm swearing now. I said, what the f you want? I don't know what you want. Anyway, so that was it. So eventually we stopped, 27 takes. That's on location. 3 weeks later, we're in the studio. And passing me by, I thought, oh my God, they look exactly like the curtains that I saw on location where I said she's gone. And it was. And there was a reshoot next day of She's Gone. No Colin Firth, just me in the room with the curtains, turning around and saying, she's gone. 17 takes later.
Oh, wow.
This is Milos Forman, right? Okay. So eventually, I finish it, and then I'm walking in the corridor later on in the afternoon, and the producer comes up to me and says, Ian, you know what you did today? We're not sure whether that's going to cut together, but tomorrow. I said, no. I said, you have 27 takes from location. You have 17 takes from today. I do it no more. That is it. You've got it. I watched the movie. I swear it's the first take he used. Milos Forman. God bless him. He's up there now. Can you hear me? Yeah, what a boy.
Do you have any stories like about working with Sir Ridley Scott
Oh,
on Napoleon?
well, Sir Ridley Scott, now please, come on. I mean, this is what I mean. How fortunate am I to play with these legends? Gladiator. Goodness me, Thelma and Louise, Gladiator 2. And I did Napoleon with him playing Louis XVIII. Tiny role, but great role. We did it at Blenheim Palace where Winston Churchill was done. And suddenly, coming through the main doors is Ridley. And I've not met him. He comes up to me and says, Ian, nice to have you with us. I said, thank you for having me. And he said, can I get you anything? Would you like a coffee? And I went, it's Ridley Scott, Sir Ridley Scott, asking me if I'd like a coffee. And I said, no, I'm fine. So he goes away, and this assistant comes up to me and says, everything okay? I said, sure. He said, would you? I said, I'd love a coffee. He said, oh, I'm sorry. You can't have one here. It's Blenheim Palace. And I said, what do you mean? Ridley Scott just asked me if I wanted a coffee. Oh, well, that's Ridley Scott. And he's got a tent with a cappuccino maker. I should have said yes. I should have said yes, and I got a cappuccino out of Ridley. But there we go. But you know what? So the movie comes. I go and see it in the cinema, and I'm cut. All my scenes are virtually cut. I got one tiny little bit in the movie, and I thought, oh my God, what's happened to me? I'm not on the screen, hardly anything. So I ring, and this is lucky because the wardrobe lady on the show who did my costume did a brilliant job. I looked fantastic, called Janty Yates. I'd worked with her years ago on a movie called The Englishman Who Went Up a Hill and Came Down a Mountain with Hugh Grant. Great movie. And so I said to Janty, what's happened, Janty? Because you know what, she worked, this is the other thing about Janty, she did The Englishman Went Up a Hill and Came Down a Mountain, and she left 1 week early to go on a movie called Gladiator, and she won an Oscar for Gladiator 1, which is amazing. So Janty Yates, so I ring, I said, what's happened to me? Well, she said, well, the trouble is that he had to bring it down because he shot too much, right? And he had to reduce it by an hour to make a theatrical release. But don't worry, when it goes on to Apple TV, all those scenes have come back, and God bless him. I wrote to him, I said, Ridley, sir, can you put me back when you put me on Apple TV? And he did, which was great. So
awesome.
Watch it on Apple TV and you get me all. Don't watch the theatrical release or you see nothing. There you go.
You've also worked with Sean Connery on The Russia House. What was that like?
Well, you know what, Sean Connery, now, I'd always had rumors that he was a little tight financially, being Scottish, right? So, so we're there on the set on Lisbon, and we're a little cafe where we're shooting the scene, and he says to me, look, just me and him, and doing this small scene together, Sean, and he says to me, look, we got about an hour, should we just go down the road and find another little cafe and have a coffee? I said, sure, I'd love to do that, a little chat. So we go down to this little cafe, and he goes, oh, I'm sorry, I don't seem to have any money on me. I had to buy him his coffee. I had to buy Sean his coffee. And I thought, oh my goodness me, it's true. It's true. You're as tight as old get out, and it was true. But what a great guy. And you know what? When I worked with him, I suddenly realized why he was so successful. His eyes were so magnetic. It's just so clear blue, and it was transparent, and just absolutely wonderful. He's just for me, he's the best Bond there's been. So, I think he's just amazing.
But you've also worked with Pierce Brosnan, correct?
Sorry?
You've also worked with Pierce Brosnan.
I worked with Pierce Brosnan on Around the World in 80 Days, and he told me a lovely story about the fact that he'd been doing Remington Steele. That's right?
Yep.
And you know what? He got Bond, but they wouldn't release him. They wouldn't release him to do the show, and he lost it because he still had to do Remington Steele, and it wasn't until later that he actually got to do Bond. But originally, he lost it because they wouldn't let him go. So that was a little tough.
And one of the things I've heard too is as soon as he turned down the role, he did one more season of Remington Steele, and that was it.
Oh, really? Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've been talking, but does anyone have any questions for Ian? Come up onto the mic. Come up to the mic.
Hi.
Oh, hello.
Can you hear me? There it is.
Do we have a photograph together?
We do, and I'll be
We
seeing,
did. If you,
I'll
you got
see
it
you
there?
later, and you'll
I
sign
can't wait
for
to see
me.
it. That's
Yes.
great.
Yeah. I was just thinking about you played Fezziwig in A Christmas Carol.
I did, yes, and I
don't
had to
think you,
dance.
Yes, I don't think. Yes, you did get to dance
And sing.
Yes.
Horrendous.
I don't think you had scenes with Patrick Stewart, but did you ever get to work with him
Oh,
elsewhere?
goodness
or-
me.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Any stories?
Star Trek, of course. Absolutely.
yeah.
You know what? And what's interesting about him was he was a Royal Shakespeare actor, right? And he was on he was doing a tour of Shakespeare. And is it Roddenberry? Was it Gene Roddenberry?
Yes.
The guy that saw him. And that's how he got the role in Star Trek, because he was doing this sort of Shakespeare season of plays. And he saw by Gene Roddenberry, and he got the role. Fantastic, yeah, no. Patrick Stewart, of course, no, great. A great actor. Hello.
Hello. My favorite movie is The Englishman Who Went Up a Hill and Came Down a Mountain.
Yes.
Love it. Do you have any memories or stories you could tell about that?
Well, you know what? The thing is this, is that, I mean, we shot it in this beautiful Welsh village, I have to say. And what was funny was that there was one tiny little shop where they sold alcohol and stuff like that. And the first weekend came, and all the stage management, all the film actors all went in there, and there was one bottle of champagne. And they took the next weekend. There were crates of it, because they knew that's what they all wanted for the weekend, was crates of champagne, I have to say. But it was amazing because we shot it and we had to go up this hill. And everybody said, well, what was it like walking up? I said, I never walked. I was always driven up to the top of it. Goodness me, yeah, no, it was a great, and working with Hugh Grant. And it was interesting because Hugh Grant, right, at that time, he wasn't famous. He was about to become famous because he just finished the movie, Four Weddings and a Funeral. And every morning in the makeup department, he had the tabloid papers, had all of them, and he was just going through it quickly to find any notice of himself in there, because he was just about to become famous. So that was kind of interesting, yeah. But and he did, didn't he? Let's face it, he did become
Sure did.
famous.
Thank you.
And such a good actor. I mean, all the stuff he's done recently. I mean, just wonderful movies he's done recently where he's been playing baddies. I mean, he's done such a good job.
And so have you.
Oh, there you go.
Somebody should warn that poor lady she's in danger from a Rutan. Just more of an observation question. What was it like playing Baron Vladimir Harkonnen, one of my absolute favorite villains?
Absolutely. Well, you know what? The thing is this. I'd seen the Lynch version, right, with Sting. And so I knew when they were going to do it, I knew what I wanted to play, because I just thought that the Baron was just such a wonderful, wonderful character. And he flew, which was great. So I was really keen to play this role. And in fact, so much so that I was, when I got asked to do the interview for it, I had to do a taping. And I was in London. I was working at the time on a TV show called David Copperfield with Maggie Smith and Bob Hoskins. A really good show, and I always played this wonderful character called Mr. Dick. I love that name. But for the costume, for the hair, I had to have a wig, a bald wig, and so what they did was they covered my hair with a bald wig first, plastic wig, and then a little sort of a few strands of hair like a comb over on top. So I had this sort of bald wig on top. And so when I asked the DP to just shoot a little section that they could send over for Dune, I did this little speech from Baron Harkonnen, and then I ripped the wig off, and it was really spooky. All this sort of stuff all came off, and it looked really, really weird and odd. And apparently, when the director saw it, he went, "Oh my God, this is great! I love this." And so that's how I got the role, which was great. And then, so I was so keen to work out how I was going to fly, because I knew the Baron was going to have to fly. And I thought, well, how are they going to do it? Because I knew rigs were quite tough with big people getting on wires and stuff, so I knew that was tricky. And they wouldn't tell me. And so I turned up, we were going to shoot it in Prague. And on the first day I got there, I was asked to go to a warehouse where inside the warehouse there was nothing there apart from, there was a crane. Just in the middle of the room, there was a crane in the middle of the warehouse, and there was all the weights one side, and at the other end was a bicycle seat and a harness. And they said, okay, so just sit on the bicycle seat, and then we're going to lift you up. And it was fantastic. I had a little rig on the back of me, so I was firm. So I sat on a bicycle seat, and they lifted me up very high, and they had it on wheels so they could move me around the warehouse. And I thought, well, that's how they're going to do it. And so it was great. The next day, we're going to have another rehearsal. So I came back in, and they'd removed the bicycle seat and replaced it with a what I can only describe as a special seat for riding very fast bicycles. It's just a little thin, sleek leather. It was so painful getting on this thing. It was horrendous. So, in fact, eventually they put some little things under my feet that I could stand on as well. But so because they said, look, you look like you're sitting, we must make you look like you're standing, which they did. Anyway, there was this guy called Laszlo who actually moved the crane for the next 6 or 7 weeks that I did the show, and he moved me all around the set and was really good at what he did. And so on the very final day, I wheeled in another little crate full of his special beer, just to say, Laszlo, you have been my legs for the last 7 weeks. Here, have this beer and go legless yourself. We never saw him again because he was so drunk by the time he got home, I tell you. So God bless Laszlo for what he did in Prague. Yep, so Dune.
Thank you for being part of one of my beloved franchises. I'm exactly as old as the novel.
I love that. That's a great story. Thank you for that.
Legless Laszlo, I love that.
Legless Laszlo was true.
You portrayed Winston Churchill, a historical figure with documentation and recordings of how he spoke. You also portrayed Cardinal Wolsey. We got nothing on him. How do you prepare for both roles?
Listen, I tell you what, I mean, that is fantastic, isn't it? I mean, Cardinal Wolsey, now, I actually played Cardinal Wolsey at the Globe in London, which is this wonderful theater, which is the recreation of the Globe Theater, which was originally what Shakespeare had. It's a fantastic recreation, and it's open to the air. So interesting when it rains, so that's interesting. And they have what is known as the groundlings, which is all the people standing in a circle below, paying £5 to get in, so that's great. And so there was one night where I was playing Wolsey, and there was a stage, and then there was a thrust from the stage right into the middle of where all the groundlings are. And I'm standing right in the middle, and I've got this long speech about Cardinal Wolsey's downfall. And he's been cheating and all the rest of it, and he's a bad boy, and he's got himself into trouble. So this long speech about his downfall, I'm saying. And suddenly there's this little titter, this laughter starts up, and I think, oh, what's wrong? Because you can hear a pin fall in these, with the audience. And I turn around, and there's a blackbird that had flown in, and it was on the stage, on the throne on the stage. And I'm thinking to myself, oh God, this is amazing. This is a bird of doom to come to get Wolsey, right? Okay. So I walk back up, and the audience are transfixed by this bird, right? Okay. And I go back up to the stage, and just as I get to the stage, this bird flies out up into the night sky. A big round of applause for the bird. And I'm thinking, what the hell is this bird? And all on the table was a pork pie. It was just looking at this pork pie. Amazing. The blackbird of doom.
That's brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a two-part question, actually.
A two-part question?
Yes.
Well, that's going to be $25 each.
Do you prefer comedic or dramatic roles? And what was it like to work with Lenny Henry on Chef?
Okay. Well, goodness me. It's like, do you know what? Hearing these things is like drowning, isn't it? My whole life appears before me. you know, with all these characters that I played. I haven't thought about Lenny Henry for years, and that's great. Thank you for doing that. Comedy or drama? I'm so lucky to actually be able to do both and to be cast in both as well. But the thing about it is playing bad is the best thing of all, is playing the naughty boys are the ones that I like the best. And I played some really nasty individuals over the years. I did a show called Conspiracy, playing a really nasty Nazi with Kenneth Branagh, and Colin Firth was in that also. Stanley Tucci, who I'd worked with on A Life Less Ordinary as well before, so that was great. So I think I prefer sort of darker characters, really, but there's got to be some laughter in there too, so there's that. Now, Lenny Henry. Well, I played this alcoholic chef, right, in this show called Chef with Lenny Henry, and my name was Gustave Laroche. He was really Gary, but he called himself Gustave Laroche, which was funny. And I had to say, at one point, I had to be in this room where I had to say, my name is Gustave Laroche, and I'm an alcoholic. And he was. Can you believe it? He was a chef because most of the wine went into him when he was cooking. It didn't go into the pot like that. So, you know, but Lenny Henry, I mean, what a consummate actor, too. I mean, it was such a good script that we did, a very, very funny show. And if you get a chance to look at it, it's really worth a look. I mean, it really is. And I had such a lot of fun working on it, playing Gustave Laroche. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Oh, the bride's coming up. I love this. Now, did you get married this weekend? That's what I want to know. You did. I love that. Woo! That's great. Hi.
The Runaway Bride.
Welcome.
I just wanted to say I absolutely loved you at Doc Martin, and that village, so beautiful, so beautiful. And for any of you who haven't seen the show, it's amazing and so funny. But I just wanted to say, the characters that you play, you do such an amazing job of embodying such quirky, wonderful people. And I don't know where you pull it all from, but it is really wonderful. Who's your favorite character, do you think, that you've embodied over the years?
Well, the thing is, I'm so lucky with what you said about Doc Martin, and it really is. I think if you haven't seen it, it's really worth a look because it really is. It's very quirky, and it's really. I mean, my character gets into so much trouble because everything he touches turns to absolute shit. I mean, it really is. I mean, he can't get anything right. I mean,
but
he runs
the heart,
a restaurant.
he gets that right.
Sorry?
The heart, he gets right.
Yes.
He screws up all the
Screws up
businesses,
everything.
but he loves so beautifully.
Yes, well, you know, he's a lovable rogue, isn't he? Let's
Exactly.
face it, he's a lovable rogue. He's got this son called Al, who just despairs about his father because he's always coming up with these entrepreneurial ideas. Everything, you know, I mean, whiskey makes whiskey, and that does actually quite well. But, you know, there's a one point where he's got this spring water that he gives everybody for free. No, he charges these water, but it's from sort of somewhere that's been contaminated by sheep or something. It's awful. Anyway, it gets into all sorts of trouble. But one thing that I remember about doing the show, which was lovely, was that we did it in this beautiful village called Port Isaac in the middle of Cornwall. And people would come and see us every day when we were filming. We had about 200 or 300 people every day coming to watch us film in the harbour and all around it, and just watch us doing it. And of course, they always want photographs, you know, to have a photograph, have a selfie, and all the rest of it. I thought to myself, there's something that I can do here. So eventually, I had a little green bucket that I carried with me, and I said, look, if you want a photograph, put £1 in there for the lifeboats, because there was a little lifeboat station in the village. So I said, put £1 in there. And you know what? By the end of the season, I collected about £4,000 or £5,000 just by my little green bucket, which I could give to the lifeboats. And over the time that we did it, I must have collected at least sort of 20, 30 grand, really, just by having selfies. So that was really nice, being able to give back something to the village, you know, which was great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for that.
What was that, Joe?
It's a sea culture. Lifeboats are part of
True, very true. I want to ask you, like, so what was your first convention that you appeared at?
The first convention the first one I did was in London, no, in Milton Keynes, not over here, but it was in London, and I remember it was like in a mall, and they had these tables, and then there were ropes going out, so you had a little section, and there was a section next to you, and so people could line up in queues. And I remember my queue when I came out was like 2 or 3 people, I think, in front of me. The queue next to me went out the door, around the building, and up the motorway. It was so long. And I said, who the hell is this? And of course, coming to sit next to me was Tom Baker. So really, that was my first convention. And I thought, well, you know, and the good thing about conventions is amazing. It really is the gift that keeps on giving. Because I've been all over the world with this now. Who'd have thought it just by doing Doctor Who? I got to Australia, to New Zealand, Gallifrey, Chicago TARDIS, the one in New York.
Long Island too?
So yes, that one, and then there's one in Florida. I've done that one, but the best of them all is the Doctor Who cruise. Can you believe this? Where you go around the Caribbean for 7 days on a cruise with 3,000 people in it, but 92 Doctor Who nerds, right? That just want to sit with you in the evening and have a meal with you. That's all I had to do, was sit down at a table, talk to them about being in the show. Then you go next night, you go to another table, then another table. There were 4 or 5 of us, you know, from Doctor. I mean, what's not to love about that? And then you get off and go around some, you know, Antigua Island. Oh, please, come on. I mean, it's amazing. And of course, you meeting fans, which is the best. Yeah.
Thank you. And this is your first time in Minnesota, correct?
Oh, yeah, and everybody told me how cold it was going to be. Well, there we go. Yeah.
Well, we're sorry about that.
No.
El Nino. No, I'm kidding. So, like, you're meeting fans at conventions. Do you have a favorite fan interaction that you've had at a convention?
I'm sorry?
So you've met a lot of fans at conventions.
Yes.
Do you have a favorite interaction you've had with a fan at any of the
I
conventions?
just think
attended?
everybody, because people come, I mean, and it happened here, it happens everywhere I go, when people come up and say, you know what, you're my favorite Winston Churchill. And that to me is really touching. It really touches my heart. Sir, gentlemen, how can I help you?
You haven't mentioned Rome yet.
Oh, Rome. This was a series that I did in Rome, for goodness sake. They shot it in Rome, can you believe it? And the I want to say the Chitty Chitty Bang Bang studio, but it wasn't. It's the Chin Chin City or something like that. But this wonderful studio where the gangs of New York and all sorts of wonderful shows have been shot there in Rome. They built this set in Rome, which was amazing. And what happened was I got a phone call out of the blue from this producer called Frank Dolger, who I'd worked with previously on Conspiracy. And he rang and said, look, I've been making this series called Rome. I said, Rome? I said, I've been wanting to get on it. He said, well, hang on a minute. We've come to the end of the first series. We've completed the first series, but there's something not quite right. He said, I want to try something out. Would you mind coming out to Rome and just doing a test for this character that I'm thinking about? I said, sure. So I flew out to Rome, and I did this test with this character called the newsreader. And I had to stand on a little plinth, and I had to sort of give the Roman people around me an idea of what was going on, like where Caesar was in the last year, which battalion had gone, whatever. And I had to do adverts like, you know, these make the best bread. You can go to this place and get it. Incredible. So it was this character called the newsreader, and then they had all these gestures too, which was absolutely true, that these characters did certain gestures. So I had this gestures and do it. Anyway, so I did about 2 little scenes like this, and they sent them back to HBO. Then 3 weeks later, Frank rings me up and says, yeah, they love it. They want you to do it. So come back out to Rome. And in a week, I did all 12 episodes in a week. And then they slotted me into all the 12 series. And Ken Cranham, one of the actors who'd been on the show, rang me and said, McNeice, what the hell? I've been on this show for over a year, and you turn up, and in a week, you do 12 episodes, and you get 12 episode fees in a week? I said, I did. I just bought a car. He said, that's horrendous. I hate you. The next series we did, I think I did, pretty much the same thing. So that was the Rome character. Thank you for bringing it up. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions? We got about 10 minutes left. Okay. Has anyone ever cosplayed as your character from Doctor Who, and what did you think about it when you saw that cosplay?
Cosplay?
Dressed up as you.
Yes, there was. It was at Gallifrey, right? And I remember this very well because I had to judge the cosplay competition, which I loved doing because someone turned up as Winston Churchill, and she turned up in what can only be described as the most wonderful costume. She had a little waistcoat, and she had a little bow tie, she had a similar little bowler top, but she also had very long legs in stockings that went all the way up. And she got first prize, I have to say.
Never let it be said you were an impartial judge.
Absolutely.
I was wondering if you could ask...
Fishnet stockings, that's what they were. That's right, fishnet.
That would have my vote. What upcoming projects are you working on right now?
A Minneapolis convention, that's what I'm doing right now, I have to tell you. No,
do you have any films
you know
or
what,
TV
the thing
shows?
is that I think I'm 75, 76 or whatever like that. It's time to hang up the boots, I think. I don't know, but the thing is I've been so lucky. Now if you haven't seen this, try and see. I think someone said it might be on BritBox out here, but just in the last year, I've made this TV series, and you should see it if you can. It's called Archie, right?
Oh,
and
yes.
it's about Cary Grant, and Jason Isaacs plays Cary Grant. He's just absolutely wonderful. He really is first rate, and they did a wonderful job. The makeup department did a dimple. He's got a little dimple. Cary Grant's dimple, just like that. And it's the most wonderful story of Cary Grant, because as a kid, he was brought up in Bristol. So he's British, and his name was Archie Leach, a tricky name if you want to be an actor. So that's how he changed Archie Leach into Cary Grant. And at the boy, he was at 15 when he came to America, to New York, in a circus. And he could do stilt walking, he could do juggling, he could do all these things. And he decided to stay in New York after they all went back. The circus went back, and then he came over to Los Angeles and started to do extra work, and eventually small roles, and that's how he began his series. But in the series, in the mini-series that we shot, I got the great fortune to play another legend. I played Alfred Hitchcock, which is fantastic, and we shot this wonderful sequence where it's a movie called North by Northwest. It's a fantastic movie. And there's a sequence in it where there's a crop duster plane comes very low over him, and he's running through this cornfield, and he hits the deck. And we actually shot that sequence because it was shot in the real movie in a studio, and we did the same thing. We recreated it in a studio with Alfred Hitchcock directing him doing this thing, because he runs and then he hits the deck in the middle of this cornfield, and they recreated the cornfield in the studio. It's a really good show. There's this wonderful sequence in the show where, absolutely true story, it was one Halloween, and he had a Halloween party where Alfred Hitchcock turned everything blue. Absolutely true story. So the house was all decorated in blue, the tables were in blue, the food was blue. He had blue steak, he had blue cauliflower, he had blue, incredible. It was all blue because it's spooky, because it's Halloween. And so we recreated that in the show. And that was really fortunate. But if you get a chance, I think it's on BritBox. It's called Archie, but do have a look at it. Jason Isaacs is perfect. He's really good as Cary Grant. And in fact, I was really fortunate because having done that, just last January and February, a year ago, I got asked to do a play, another play at the Hampstead Theatre, in which I played Alfred Hitchcock again. It was called Double Feature. And the play was about him, Alfred Hitchcock, and Tippi Hedren from the movie Marnie. And they talk about him rehearsing in that show. And it was a wonderful play to do, and there was a wonderful actress who played Tippi Hedren. And what a nasty individual Alfred Hitchcock turned out to be, because he really fancied her, and he really abused her too, because she didn't want anything to do with him sexually. But he advanced on her several times, and she said no. And what happened was that after they concluded Marnie, she was still under contract to him. But everybody came to him and said, look, will you release her to go off and do other films? And he said no. And for about 2 or 3 years afterwards, she didn't do any other work. And she was on a poor amount of money from just being with him under contract. And he just completely ruined her career, because so not a very nice individual, I have to say.
That's what I've heard about him too.
Yeah.
Well, we're at 11:26. I just want to say it's been an honor to interview you.
Well, thank you.
Let's give it up for Ian McNeice.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Listen, I'm gonna, if you haven't got a signed photograph, come and get one. They're very cheap. And much more cheaper than the other people that have been here as well. You know, that's such a lot of money, but me, very, very cheap. Very nice to talk to you. Thank you for being a wonderful audience. Thanks a lot. Bye now.